Good morning. We're in the middle of Basi Ligani Tafshin Chav Dalid. As we said, this is the Maimer that the Rebbe said Matzei Shabbos of the year Tafshin Chav Dalid, explaining Ois Yud Dalid of the Frierdiker Rebbe's Maimer Basi Ligani. So we're holding in page Yud Ches, the top paragraph, V'hinei. All right, V'hinei, the Rebbe says, behold, Hadarga Chiel Yena. So the highest level of revelation is a revelation that which is a revelation of ein loy soif. There's no end, ve'ein loy tachlis, and there's no limit. And this is what the Frierdiker Rebbe brings in Parakid Beis. From the Tikkunei Zayar, Sha'or in Seif, Hulamayla Adin Kates, Hulamata Adin Tachlis. So he brings down from the Tikkunei Zayar that Hashem's infinite light is Lamayla Adin Kates, which means it extends upwards without bonds, without any limitation, and downwards without any end. That's what the Tikkunei Zayar says. That she'erin seif, that this erin seif is l'mayla adin kates. It extends upwards, and it extends upwards without bond and downwards without any end. That's what the Tikkunei Zayar says. So the Rebbe says, the Rebbe explains from the Frierdiker Rebbe V'hainu shemizeh shnikra b'shem eir, this that we're calling ein seif, light or ein seif. So move on, it's understood. If you're calling it light, shezo inyan shagilei. So it obviously is something which is of revelation. Shehu geder ha'eir hu gilei. When you say something is light, that means that it's revealed, because light is something which is revealed. Otherwise, it's darkness. So when you're saying ein seif is or ein seif, that means that it's a ein seif which is revealed. However, it's not a regular type of revelation. It's a type of light, it's a type of revelation which has the name of Ein Sof. It's unlimited, which is Shulamayla Adin Kates, Ulamata Adin Tachlis, which means that it extends upwards, it goes upwards and extends downwards unlimited. The Rebbe says, so the Frierdiker Rebbe explains what's the greatness of Or Ein Sof when you're saying. And the Rebbe is going to focus on this in this ois. He's going to explain what does it mean, Lamata Adin Kates, what does it mean, Lamayla Adin Kates, Lamata Adin Tachlis. So he says like this, he explains the greatness of this, Heichel Ma'bir Ba'in, the Lamata Adin Tachlis. So the Frierdiker Rebbe explains in Perek Yud Beis, he explains what is the greatness of when the Zayar says that Or Ein Sof is Lamayla Adin Kates or Lamata Adin Tachlis. So in Ois Yud Beis, the Frierdiker Rebbe explains what does it mean Lamata Adin Tachlis. The Hainu Ad Madrega Hayeser Mata Mata Shebeseder Ishtalshlos, which means that the Or Ein Sof goes to the lowest level of Seder Ishtalshlos. Oilam Hazar Tachtin Shu Oilam Asiyah, that it goes into the lowest level of the four worlds in Oilam Asiyah. And uboilam asiya gufa leirak in yonei kedusha and yonei deshusha bay. And when it goes into the oilam asiya, it's not only going into the yonei kedusha of oilam asiya, alagam inyan aklipis. The Or Ein Sof is going in also in the level of klipis. Shagam heim shudim oilam asiya, which they are also connected with oilam asiya. And then the Frierdiker Rebbe explains. So that's the chiddush. The chiddush of when the Zayar says Or Ein Sof is lamayla adin kates, so lamata adin tachlis. So the Frierdiker Rebbe explains in Oishud Beis, Ulamata and Tachlis means that the Or Ein Sof goes mamish in Olam Asiyah and in Olam Asiyah in the klippus there. And we're going to see from the Rebbe the chidushim in these words. You said in Mizu, and even more so, Afilu in Yonim, Shem Lamata Ma Klippa, even matters which are lower than Klippa. Before Betanya, as the Alter Rebbe explains in Tanya Perech of Dalid, a person who sins, it's even worse, it's even lower than the level of Sitra Achar and Klippo. Kamaimer, like the Gemara says, we say about somebody who sins, Yitush Kodamach, that a mosquito comes before you, is higher than you. Why? Since the klippa is doing what it has to, is being mamal the tafkid of why it was created, which means not only on the klippa, when we say the level of klippa, which is like a shell which guards the fruit, even the klippas that entice a person to sin. B'dugmas hazene shesachra hamelech k'dei lifteis lefateis es ben hamelech. Like the Rebbe brings us in Tanya from Zayar, it's like the king that hires the zayna to seduce his son to see if he's loyal. Obviously, the zayna is doing her job, but the king doesn't want the zayna to seduce the son. At least she is being mamala the command of the king. However, somebody who sins and is over on the Eibishter, he's even lower than the klippa. Now, so in a person who's being over the Eibishter, you have the way he's a sinner and he's negligent in L'umazeh and in Yana Rishus. And not only that, you have sometimes a person who uses Kedusha, uses Torah, uses mitzvahs to go mamish the opposite of what the Eibishter wants. This is what he says in Ches, Al derech ha'inyan that tzelim behechel. It's like having a tzelim in the hechel. It's like somebody who's holding on to the head of the king, and he brings it down, and like he's putting it mamish in manure. As the Alter Rebbe is Messiah in Perek Yud Gimel, we're going to have this in a few days. And this is what, this is Tanya. Like it says in Tanya, Perek Chav Dalet. Now, back, this is what the Frierdiker Rebbe says in the Maimer, that with the Keach HaTeira, he says something which is Hepech Halacha. This is also included in Lamata Lamata, Adkan Hu Amavur B'Yud Gimel Perakim Harishin. Till this is what is explained in the first 13 chapters of the Basi Ligani. So what we explain now is the Frierdiker Rebbe took what it says in Tikkun Ezer, Ha'orein Seif is L'mayla Adin Kates, Ulamata Adin Tachlis, and we explained what does it mean, Ulamata Adin Tachlis, that the Orein Seif goes in the level of, to the lowest level of Asiya, and even in Asiya goes to the level of Klippa, and even lower than Klippa, you should know that the Orein Seif is still there. Okay, so now the Rebbe made a sikkim, till now what we learned from the beginning till now, the Rebbe made a sikkim of from Ois Aleph to Ois Yud Dalet, till Yud Dalet. Now, let's turn the page. As I said, let's wait till we actually get to there. So we'll appreciate what the Rebbe's Chidushim is in this year's Ois. Okay, so let's go to page Zion over here. In the booklets, it's Ois Yudalid. Now, let's learn what the Frierdiker Rebbe says in Ois Yudalid. And a lot of it's a little bit cryptic, it's a little bit vague. And obviously the Rebbe is going to come and going to dissect every word in order for us to appreciate all the novelties of the Frierdiker Rebbe's this year's Maimer. Okay, so now he says like this. Now, we said in Perek Yud Beis, in section 12, the Frierdiker Rebbe began the explanation that Hashem's infinite light, the Orein Seif, extends, we said, Lamata Adin Tachlis, which means downwards without any end. Which it's highlighting that his light, his brings into being an endless range of created beings. That the Orein Seif goes even to the level of Lamata Lamata. Now, in Perek Yud Gimel, the Frierdiker Rebbe emphasizes that not only does Hashem bring these created things into being, and His light is enclosed and internalized. In Perek Yud Gimel, the Frierdiker Rebbe emphasizes that not only does Hashem bring these created beings into beings, His light is enclosed and internalized within them, giving them life. Now, although on certain levels of existence, the godly light, the Ein Sof, is concealed, to the extent that many people could deny that there's an existence of light and life energy entirely giving them life, and they entirely deny Hashem's existence. So he says, the truth of all the existence is that the godly life force that brings it into being maintains and provides everything with chayas. Now, in Perek Yud Daled, the Alter Rebbe is going to add two further points. Number one, that despite being enclosed in the created being, despite that the Ein Sof is enclosed in the created being, the godly life force remains transcendent, doesn't get stuck, it doesn't get hurt, doesn't get changed because it encloses in the klippah. And number two, this enables it to be recognized by mankind. That's what and so we're going to learn what the Frierdiker Rebbe says, and then the Rebbe is going to dissect it. So let's learn. Okay, page 9. So he says like this: V'hinei, the Frierdiker Rebbe says, V'hinei b'chol zeh v'atem mechayes kulam ksiv. Now, behold, in all of this, the pasuk says, what does the pasuk say? You give life to all of them. In other words, despite the powerful concealment that the Ein Sof undergoes in its descent through Seder Shtalshalos, so the Ein Sof comes into the being, and it's the source of the being. It gives chayas. What does it say? So even though it's a powerful concealment, and when it undergoes through the Seder Shtalshalos, nevertheless, what does the pasuk say? V'atem mechayes kulam. You give life to all of them. So what does that mean? The ha'aras or eliki, this ray of godly light, hari nimshach lahavis ulahachis es kol hanivroim ayin liyesh. So this ray of light is drawn down and brings all creations, in other words, even on the lowest levels, those in the realm of klippah, from non-being into existence, giving them life. So you have the eliki, which is drawn down, and it brings, it's the diak over here. Harei nimshach lahaves. So you have the Ein Sof, which it is drawn down, and ulahaches, and it brings all creations from ayin liyesh, from non-being into existence, giving them life. These are Geras HaKadosh as the Tanya in Geras HaKadosh. In Geras 20 states, the ha'ara hu b'chol nivroim v'neitzarim v'nasim. A reflection of ray, in order for the Ein Sof to come down, so Hashem had to be mitzamtzim it. A reflection of a ray of Hashem's light is found in all beings that were created, formed, and made. Shehu oir v'chayis aliki shenimshach b'chol nivroim. This, the godly light and life energy that is drawn down into all created beings. Which means, Kumaimer, like the Gemara says, Hazon umefarnis mekarne de'emim ad beitzikinim. It says about the Eibishter, he sustains and nourishes all existence from mekarne de'emim, means like the horned buffalo, to the beitzikinim, which is like the broods of lice. And the Rebbe is going to explain, in the Maimer, he's going to explain the two extremes. That it doesn't only mean begashmias, that Hashem is sustaining the highest level to the lowest level, but also beruchnias. We're going to see that there's different levels over here. We're going to learn inside that this is a metaphor of spiritual two extremes. You have the level of Karnei Amim, which refers to the 10 spheres, the way that it exists in Keser. And then on the other extreme, like the Pri Etz Chaim explains, Kinim has the gematria of 120, referring to the 120 possible combinations of the letters of Shem Elikim, which is the source of the limitation and concealment of Hashem within existence. So that the Rebbe is going to go by Arichas. Okay, so now he says, so this Chayes that comes down, and it's drawn down in all created beings, as the Gemara says, he sustains from the horned buffalo to the brood of lice, which means the or v'chayes meir v'nimshach gam b'madregas hayeser tachtenim v'hayeser shvalim, which means that the light and life energy radiates forth and is drawn down to even the lowest and the lowest of the levels. As is written, David HaMelech says, Im esek shamayim shamata. If I soar to the heavens, you are there. And v'atzia and hineka, which means if I make my bed in the lowest level, then you are there. If I make my bed in the abyss, behold, you are there. The zeu is bainin in gulas gdele begdulas havaya. Now, when a person is aware of this awareness should lead to a profound meditation in the greatness of Hashem. Shenimshach b'chol seder yishtalshlos madrega lamadrega. And the realization that the greatness is drawn down level by level through all the stages of the chain-like progression of existence. Ad madregas bruyim hayeser shvalim, down to the level of the lowliest creatures. And the Frierdiker Rebbe says it's within the reach of every man, including the simplest man, to realize this. To behold the greatness of Hashem. So here again we see that the theme of this section, not only is Hashem's light drawn down and manifested in the lowest level, but that through the vitality it conveys to all existence, so a person could become aware of this. And the Rebbe is going to go by Arichas what this means. As explained in the above mentioned Maimer in Teda Er, beginning of Va'eda. As the Alter Rebbe explains, Hashem is great in the city of our Hashem. It's possible to perceive the greatness of Hashem by meditating on the multitudes of creation. So through meditating, it produces a profound emotional arousal in one's soul. We see this mamish b'muchash in a tangible way. How is this possible? Because Hashem's light is essentially infinite. Since the Hashem's light is essentially infinite, so its expansion is also limitless. Reaching to multitudes of level in a Seder Yishtalshlos descent to the lowest of levels. Now the Rebbe says, the Frierdiker Rebbe goes on and says, in every place which Hashem's light is drawn down and diffused, it's neither affected nor changed at all. It's not like the way the soul animates the body. The soul is affected by what happens in the body. When you have, let's say, a change of weather, there's physical pain, so the soul is affected by the body. Right? Let's say a person with a headache cannot think clearly, and even change of climate, hot or cold, affects the way a person thinks. So the way when the neshama comes down in the guf, the way the guf is, has an effect on the neshama. But the godly light that provides vitality to all the existence and brings it into being, is neither affected nor changed by what happens in this world. Now, the Rebbe says, so now that the Frierdiker Rebbe is explaining that the Odin Seif, when it comes down over here, even though it gives chayas and it gives vitality to every single being, but it does not affect the Odin Seif at all. Now, so the potential exists for there to be a change in the light due to it being enclosed within the created beings. V'hainu mashi slapshus pel ezeshine. The fact that the enclosement of Ein Seif within the world brings about a certain change in the light. Hurak ba'achayesh b'pchinas keach. This involves only the life energy referred as keach, which is the force or power. V'yadua, it's known, the chayesh hu b'pchinas keach hu ma'akelim debriya yitzira asiyah. It's well known that the life energy described in keach stems from the kelim of the world of Bria, Yitzira, and Asiya. The Kalim, the Bria, Yitzira, Asiya, Hariheim, B'chinas Mitzius. So these Kalim are independent entities. Kudisa Be'geres HaKedesh, and now, the Reishus Hayesh, Hein Kalim, the Bria, Yitzira, Asiya. As it says in the Geres HaKedesh, that we said before, the Kalim of the worlds of Bria, Yitzira, and Asiya, they constitute the beginning of Yesh, so, since, even though they are Kalim of the Eibishter, it's nevertheless possible for the Kalim to undergo a change and be affected by the Levushim. By contrast, the Eid, which is Hashem's essential light, that radiates life-giving energy, is not changed or affected in the process. Why? The fi she'enei mis'arev. Because even as it shines within the lower realms, it does not really commingle with the recipient of the light. As expressed by the Zayar, in Kodesh Kavaya, the Isa B'Zayar. Now, it says in the Zayar, on the pasuk that says, there's none as holy as Hashem, Kama Kadishin Inun, less Kodesh Kavaya. So the Zayar says, there are many expressions of holiness, but none are as holy as Hashem. The Kodesh Havaya, Eine Kamoi Kama Kadishin Nisei. Hashem's holiness does not resemble the other expressions of holiness found within the chain-like progression of existence. The Kadishin should be said who should Kodesh Muvdal. The Zayar mentions other expressions of holiness in the Seder Ishtashlos, amongst them the Jewish people and the Malachim. So the holiness involves remaining separate and distinct from the lower entities. So when different levels of spiritual existence are described as Kaddish. Now, Uktushasam hu she'enam boyim b'slapshus. Their holiness lies in the fact that they are not enclosed in the created beings below them. In other words, they remain transcendent and distinct from them. When, however, they depart from the natural state and enclose themselves and become intermingled with the lower entities, so those entities kivyochol grasp them. Utfisa peyel b'shinei, and when something is described as having been tfisa grasp, that means that a change has been brought about in the object being grasped. Now, that's in general. However, the holiness of Hashem, the Eid mentioned above, is different. It does not resemble the expression of holiness within the Seder Ishtalshlus. In that it does not generally enclose itself in the created being. The kasher babi slapshus, and even when it does enclose itself, the lower level does not take a hold of it. Why? The fi she'ein mis'arev, because it does not commingle with the recipient of the light. As we said, it remains essentially transcendent. The Rebbe illustrates this concept by explaining the contrast between Yosef and the Shvatim. The neshamis, what was the whole machlekes between Yosef and his brothers? So the neshamis of Yaakov, of the sons of Yaakov, the Shvatim, they were rooted in the world of Bria. Yosef, on the other hand, was rooted in the level of Atzilus. So for Yosef's brothers to remain holy without being drawn after material attractions of this world, they had to be basically completely disengaged from the world. So therefore, what was their occupation? They worked as shepherds. That was an occupation that allowed them to be in their own world, set apart from the involvement of the nitty-gritty financial affairs. So we see the nature of the other expressions of Kedusha within the existence, so there needs to be a separation. Why? Because then the Kedusha will become affected by the lower levels of the existence. Yosef was essentially from the world, above the world. He was one with the Eibishter's light, the level of Spheris, of Atzilus. So even when he was involved within the Gashmias, the material existence, it didn't disrupt his fundamental connection with Hashem. So even while serving as the Mishnah Lamelech and managing all the financial affairs and everything, he still remained completely bonded to Hashem. And this explains why his brothers were, as we know, why were his brothers unable to recognize him? Because they couldn't understand how this phenomenon was possible. So Yosef's conduct serves as an example for the manner in which Hashem's light extends in the lowest realms without being affected by them. So just as Yosef was able to remain detached and totally one with the Eibishter, even while involved in the mundane tasks, so too Hashem's remains unchanged even as it becomes enclosed in material existence. That's how the Rebbe explains. Okay, we're going to see in the Maamar more of this concept. Okay, back in the Pnim. This physical light provides an analogy to explain this concept. Shemeir, it illuminates in the area in which it shines, and yet it does not commingle with whatever entities are located there. Take, for example, the light that shines through colored glass. You have light that shines through colored glass. You have red, you have green, you have white glass. They have a different appearance in each case. When the air shines through red, it looks like red. When it shines through green, it looks like green. The essence of the light remains uncompounded and colorless. Even though, according to the color of the glass, it does not take on that color itself as it appears in that color. Only because it shines through the other glass. Even when it shines in a manner where it's enclosed in the glass, it's not taken hold of by it. In other words, internally it doesn't change the air, doesn't change the light itself. Why? Because it does not commingle with the glass, but rather, like we say, it retains its transcendence. So the Rebbe says, the Frierdiker Rebbe says, for these examples, we can understand the parallel existing regarding the divine light and the life energy that animates the creation. This force does not undergo a change. It does not, it remains unchanged and unaffected, even though it brings existence into being and providing it with life. Why is this? Because the light is inherently infinite. So therefore, the way it manifests is also infinite. It's drawn down to the last and lowest levels of existence, like the very low creatures. Whatever it's drawn down, it remains unaffected and unchanged. Why? Because of its innate simplicity and unchanging nature. Because it's therefore expressed in a multitude of different levels with endless and infinite manifestations. And this is what it means when we say that Hashem's Ein Sof extends downwards without end. It's expressed and revealed even in the lowest levels of existence. And now we have Yisud Daled hopefully clear. We'll appreciate tomorrow what the Rebbe's Chidushim on here.